the start of 2024, Colleen and I had wanted to start doing our Dolly dining series again, where we cook recipes that are like inspired by dolls. And Colleen had wanted to do a few out of her Molly cookbook. And we filmed what you see here in like January and February. We only did like 2 of the recipes, but we just ended up having like so much happen in February that I just never got around to like looking through the cookbook and figuring out like what else we needed. And the problem is we're vegetarian. A lot of the recipes aren't. And like, yes, you can make things vegetarian style, but then it's also like if I'm spending money on food, I want to be able to eat it, and I'm not really that into mock meat. And some of them are just really simple, like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich cut a certain way. So we might do like another installment to this for Molly, and we do have like Samantha's cookbook that we've done a recipe from.
Yes, the ice cream.
So yeah, we have other ideas for this, but I just want to finish this video.
Yeah.
Even though it's really small, and just see if you guys like it. That way it's not just like sitting on my computer and I don't know when I'll get to finishing it. My computer is 11 years old. I'm probably going to replace it this year because it's just getting really slow, and I just want to make sure like any footage that's been hanging out there for a while doesn't go to complete waste if it's still kind of usable. So we hope you enjoy. Today we're here with Chef Colleen, who wants to show you a few recipes from Molly's cookbook. So what will you be making?
Today I am making Toad in the Hole. That's the picture in the book. And I actually own pajamas like that, but I was too lazy to put them on for this. The pajamas don't change the taste of the food. This is called Toad in the Hole. And I've also seen this recipe called Egg in a Basket. It's the same thing. So you will need bread, butter or margarine. I'm using margarine.
They use margarine more often.
Eggs, this is true. They did. A drinking glass or a cookie cutter. Now I've improvised and used a mason jar lid. A butter knife, large skillet or frying pan. I don't know why it says I need measuring spoons. Spatula and serving plate, which I have right here.
And these eggs come from Happy Hens from the farm I work at.
Yes, they were collected by us personally. The first thing you do, and I don't really need the book for this because I know how to make this.
Yeah, you make this regularly.
I do make this regularly. Take 2 pieces of bread, or it says 6 in the book, but I'm only making it for me. 2 slices of bread. It says in the book to butter them before I cut the hole, but honestly that's messy and a waste of butter. So I'm going to do it the opposite way. We swapped for a smaller jar lid. Sometimes it pops right out like that. Other times you might need a knife to like It says in the book to butter one side of the bread. I think it's delicious to butter both sides of the bread, but I'm going to stick to the book for this part.
You broke it.
Only a little bit. It'll still work because the egg will make it stick. Alright. And this is a trick I learned at work. You crack the egg right in the pan. Perfect. Chef Cully inspired.
Go ahead.
So it doesn't say in the book to flip them, because I think you're supposed to eat the sunny side up, but I like to flip them just to see if they're cooked, which clearly they weren't quite cooked. Because that was the more cooked one and it just kind of like spilled out. But because you're basically eating egg on bread with a fork, on this I don't mind if the yolk is a little runny. It's a little more than a little runny, so that needs to cook more. This is what it was supposed to look like. That's what mine does look like. It's still edible and I'll enjoy it.
Alright, let's taste it.
It's good. You need a little salt and pepper.
Okay, well, that's how you make toad in the hole.
Well, that's how a messy, clumsy person makes toad in the hole.
The next recipe that I made was this quick coffee cake. I did have to make some substitutions, which I'll explain, and there were some ingredients that I didn't have.
I started by preheating the oven to 425, and then I added 1.5 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, not baking soda, and then half a teaspoon of salt. And this is going to be my bowl for dry ingredients. I'm going to mix it all together and then set it aside and have another bowl for the wet ingredients. So these are 3 tablespoons of margarine. Instead of shortening, I didn't have shortening, so I had to use a substitution. And then I beat that with the electric mixer until it was fluffy. And then I slowly added in the white sugar, which is 1/3 cup, adding it in little bits at a time so that the mixture was like fluffy, because you don't want to overload the mixture with sugar right off the bat. And this was a little bit difficult to keep the bowl in place while I was doing this. And I just made it into this like really whipped texture here, which was a little bit hard to get off of the electric mixer. So as I mentioned, there are substitutions, like the shortening I didn't have, and I also didn't have an egg, and you were supposed to sift the flour, which I did not do. I didn't have a sifter. I was like, whatever, it just won't be as fluffy. It turned out fine, and then I tend to not add eggs when I bake things because it's just really to hold stuff together, and I find it works as well without them. So once I had this mixture, I then combined the wet and dry ingredients. I forgot to put the milk in, so I had to add it a little bit later, but I don't know, it came out fine. This might be, though, some of these slight alterations I made are probably why the texture at the end didn't turn out quite as like crumbly as coffee cake does, and maybe if I made it a second time, I would have learned from my mistakes. I also used almond milk, not dairy milk. I don't drink dairy milk most of the time because it doesn't agree with me, so this was just like vanilla almond milk. I didn't have any like unsweetened almond milk laying around, and then I just spent several minutes combining this, and then at some point you're going to see I break out the electric mixer again, which it said to use the electric mixer, that's why I'm using it, and then I just stirred it all together. Then I grabbed an 8x8 baking pan and I sprayed it with cooking oil. It said to grease it with butter, but I didn't have any, so I just used the cooking spray and it worked out fine. And then I spread the whole mixture around the base of the pan. And then I had to melt butter on the stove. I have margarine, I don't buy butter, so I used a tablespoon of butter and I melted it in the pan. I could have done it in the microwave, but I just did it as the instructions said. And then there was half a cup of brown sugar with a teaspoon of cinnamon, and then you mix this together and add the melted butter. And I don't know if it was supposed to be so wet. I think that maybe the margarine made a difference, but then I had to spread it on top. And I kind of had to like mix it in a bit because, like I said, it was pretty wet, and I've never made coffee cake before, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be more crumbly, but it turned out good. And then I put it in the oven, and I had to bake it for 25 minutes.
I just took it out of the oven and I'm going to let it cool. This is what it looks like though. It smells really good. So I have my little piece of coffee cake. It's cooled down. It's good. It's definitely like not super sweet. I would definitely make this again. The only thing I'll say is that I can tell that like not sifting the flour made a difference because it's more dense than coffee cake usually is. Coffee cake is usually like really crumbly, but I didn't have a sifter. But I don't mind the texture. Definitely really edible, even if you don't make it 100% to the recipe. And it's also really not difficult to make, and I had most of the stuff or substitutions of the stuff laying around, which is great. And the fact that I didn't have eggs, I don't feel like it really made a difference, but definitely sifting the flour I think would have made a bigger difference. We hope you enjoyed this very short episode of Dolly Dining
Cooking with Molly.
I do want to make an update. So the coffee cake I made, the reason it didn't come out the right consistency, I realized later, was because I was trying to use the electric mixer and it just wasn't like mixing right. So when I did it, I made this recipe 3 or 4 times after, and I feel like the texture got a lot better because I just mixed it by hand. I didn't end up needing the eggs because I remember I thought it turned out funny because of the eggs. It was actually the way I was mixing it. So, yeah, we hope you enjoyed. We have some old episodes of Dolly Dining in this playlist if you want to see them. They're not many, but until next time.
It's there.
Love your dolls, love yourself, and love your life.